It all started so innocently. There was nothing in the world that could have prepared me for what was to come. The sun was shining, the air was filled with the gentle hum of a quiet afternoon, and in the middle of it all, a tiny kitten yawned, stretching his little paws, as if he owned the world. I brought him home. This little ball of fluff with eyes so big and round, you could lose yourself in them. I named him Mochi. He was so small, so delicate, and so impossibly adorable that I couldn't help but fall in love instantly. Every time he blinked those enormous eyes, my heart melted a little more. I imagined a peaceful life together, cuddles on the couch, gentle purrs at night, and a friendship that would last a lifetime. Sweet, soft, harmless, or so I thought. I gave him toys, thinking I was providing enrichment, but I was enabling a monster. I bought every kind of toy. Plush mice, jingling balls, feather wands. I thought I was being a good pet parent, giving him everything he could ever want. But with every new toy, I was unknowingly fueling something darker inside him. The way he stalked, pounced, and growled at his toys. Signs I laughed off as cute. I was blind to the darkness behind those whiskered cheeks. His playful attacks grew more intense, his eyes sharper, his movements more calculated. What I thought was innocent fun was actually the early training ground for a much more sinister obsession. This isn't just a story about a cat and his toys, this is a true crime documentary. And I was living with a serial toy killer. The evidence was everywhere. Shredded mice, torn feathers, and a kitten who looked far too pleased with his handiwork. Little did I know the beginning of our story was also the beginning of the end, for every toy that crossed Mochi's path. It was a Tuesday, the kind of Tuesday that felt ordinary, with sunlight streaming through the windows and the world outside moving at its usual lazy pace, but inside, something was about to change. That afternoon, I brought home a new toy mouse, Mr. Squeaky. He was small, gray, and had a tiny bell inside that jingled with every movement. I placed him on the carpet, not knowing the fate that awaited him. Mochi's eyes snapped open, pupils dilating as he locked onto Mr. Squeaky with chilling, predatory focus. It was as if a switch had flipped inside him, transforming my sweet cat into a silent hunter. He circled the toy with calculated steps, his body low to the ground. He stalked it, every muscle tensed, testing the mouse's defenses with gentle taps of his paw. Mochi was learning, analyzing, searching for any weakness in his new adversary. Then, in a sudden blur of fur and determination, he pounced. He snatched Mr. Squeaky in his jaws and without hesitation, dragged the helpless toy backwards under the couch, disappearing into the darkness beneath. The bell inside Mr. Squeaky rang out, a frantic jingle echoing through the room. Then, just as quickly, the sound faded into silence, swallowed by the shadows under the furniture. I called for Mochi, hoping he'd emerge with the toy, but he vanished into the shadows, leaving only a faint rustle and the memory of that final jingle. Minutes passed. The spot where Mr. Squeaky had once been was now empty. Mochi reappeared, sitting innocently, but the toy was nowhere to be found. It was as if it had simply ceased to exist. I searched everywhere, under the couch, behind the curtains, even in the hallway, but it was as if the toy had been dragged to another dimension. Mr. Squeaky was gone, forever lost to the mysterious world beneath the furniture. He was the first of many. In our home, no toy is ever truly safe. And so began Mochi's reign of playful terror. Mr. Squeaky would not be the last to vanish. After Mr. Squeaky, I bought a sturdier mouse, the replacement. For a while Mochi played normally. I let my guard down. Then, one night, I heard thumps. Mochi pinned the mouse, grabbed its head, and twisted. The toy's head spun backwards, hanging by threads. Mochi looked up at me. No remorse, just pride. He'd executed it, left the body as a warning. This wasn't rough play. This was methodical. The neck snap, his signature move. The calling card of a killer. The body count rose. Mochi's methods evolved. The next victim, Finley the fish, waterproof and unassuming. One morning, I found Finley floating face down in Mochi's water bowl. The placement was deliberate, a perfect chilling tableau. Mochi sat nearby, just watching like a mob boss admiring his work. The message was clear. No one is safe, not on land, not in water. The water bowl, once a source of life, was now a watery grave. Mochi was a storyteller, and his medium was murder. Mochi's depravity grew. Now, he performed post-mortem rituals. My favorite throw blanket became a makeshift cemetery. I found 3 ball toys lined up, buried under the blanket. They weren't just hidden, they were arranged, entombed. It was a burial, a ceremony. My couch was now a consecrated burial ground, and Mochi was the purring undertaker. He was escalating. I was terrified of what would come next. I thought the burial was the peak. I was wrong. One morning, sunlight revealed a new horror. Wiggles the worm toy, hanging from the window blind cord. Mochi had strung him up, a public display meant for me. How did a cat manage this? The logistics were terrifying. The body swayed in the sun, a grim effigy. Mochi was nowhere to be seen, but I knew he was watching. The message, not even gravity could save them. Mochi's bloodlust grew. He wanted carnage. The victim, Barnaby the teddy bear. I came home to stuffing everywhere, a blizzard of fluff. Barnaby's head was severed, his body hollowed out. Mochi had performed a full decapitation and disembowelment. He sat nearby, calmly cleaning his paw. Unbothered, he looked at me, then at Barnaby's head, and meowed. Barnaby wasn't just a victim, he was a sacrifice. After the decapitation, Mochi became a forensic artist. He arranged his victims' remains on my bedroom floor. Around each toy, he formed outlines, not with chalk, but with his own shed fur. It was a multiple homicide scene, complete with fuzzy silhouettes. This wasn't play. This was performance art. Mochi was leaving clues. Threats, really. The outlines seemed to say, I did this, and you're next. The chalk outlines were a turning point. Mochi's violence became ritual. One night I woke to find him asleep in the center of the rug, surrounded by his toys in a perfect circle. Each toy faced inward, their stitched eyes fixed on him. They were acolytes, worshippers at the altar of their destroyer. The silence was heavy, the scene charged with strange energy. I didn't dare move or breathe. I waited for sunrise to break the spell. The ritual circle was the last straw. Mochi made it personal. The next victim, a plush monster toy with big googly eyes. I found the eyes stuck to the fridge, staring at me. He'd ripped them off and used them to send a message. I'm watching you. The rest of the toy was destroyed, but the eyes were the key. This was no longer about the toys. This was about me. Mochi had crossed the line. He was my personal tormentor. After months of shredded toys and failed attempts to find something Mochi couldn't destroy, I knew it was time for the ultimate challenge. I scoured the internet, read endless reviews, and finally settled on the Unbreakable 5000, marketed as the most indestructible cat toy ever made. The packaging was almost comically over the top, promising military-grade durability, and tested by tigers. I was skeptical, but desperate. If this didn't work, nothing would. Mochi eyed his new adversary with suspicion. The final boss had arrived, a rhino-shaped heavy-duty toy that looked like it could survive a stampede. For a moment, there was a tense standoff, cat versus rhino, predator versus prey. Then, with a flick of his tail, Mochi launched his assault. He pounced, bit, and clawed at the rhino with a single-minded determination I'd never seen before. Day turned to night, and still, he attacked, as if possessed by some ancient feline spirit of destruction. For an entire week, the battle raged on. Every morning I'd find Mochi wrestling, scratching, and biting the rhino, refusing to let up. The toy was tossed, dragged, and battered from one end of the house to the other. It became a test of wills, Mochi's relentless energy against the so-called unbreakable toy. Then, one quiet afternoon, I noticed something strange. A gentle snowfall of white fluff drifted down from the ceiling, settling softly on the living room floor. I followed the trail, heart sinking. There, in the center of the chaos, Mochi sat atop the ruined rhino, chest puffed out in triumph. He looked every bit the conquering hero, surrounded by the spoils of war. He had found the toy's one weak seam, exploited it with surgical precision, and utterly destroyed the indestructible. The rhino was no more. There were no survivors, just a battlefield of stuffing and torn fabric. Mochi, now king of the carnage, surveyed his domain with pride. He had conquered the unconquerable, and he knew it. In that moment, I realized the truth. You can't outsmart a cat with a taste for chaos, especially not one as determined, and maybe a little bit psychopathic, as Mochi. So, what do you do when your adorable cat is a remorseless agent of chaos? You buy more toys, cheaper ones. You accept your home as a stage for a one-cat horror show. Mochi is a monster, a villain, a fluffy little nightmare, but he's mine. As he curls up on my lap, purring, I feel a strange pride. Life is never boring with my little psychopath.